All right, so the pec muscle is going to come up here. Now I could just cover it all. Okay, I can just add in some. Hey everyone, welcome to Draw Sessions, and I just want to say happy Halloween to everyone listening, and happy Halloween to all of the people out there wondering which creature actually won based on the voting that I started about 4 or 5 days ago. So let's dip into that really quick because I want to show you just how close the voting was. All right, so we have Chupacabra, Goblin, Werewolf, Ghoul, Mummy. What I did was I just Googled the most popular Halloween creatures. Of course, there were some left out, like Dracula and other things, but look how close this was. Werewolf at 33%, Chupacabra at 32%. Now, Werewolf had a clear advantage early on, and then Chupacabra started to gain steam. I thought the Mummy was going to get a lot more, but I guess not. And there were 72 votes, so that's a pretty good amount. So, as promised, uh, whichever one won, I was going to draw for Halloween, and also I was going to wait until the very last second before I start the video just to see if there were some extra votes coming in because there were 72 this morning. And then a couple hours later, it was still at 72. So I'm going to start filming this now. Thank you all for sending in your votes. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And that's not to suggest that I will not draw the Chupacabra at a later time. All right, let's get into it. Now, first, I want to keep this raw as possible. And that means I'm not using any reference. It's basically going to be all of the werewolf movies that I obsessed about growing up. My favorite werewolf movie is American Werewolf in London, but there are also some very, very other, or I'm sorry, there are some other very good ones. Like for example, Howling. You got Dog Soldiers by Danny Boyle. You have, I mean, some people might like Van Helsing, the werewolf in that. The newer Wolfman with Benicio del Toro. So whichever generation you were in, I I am partial to American Werewolf in London. One because not to get it too deep into it, but I met David Naughton at a Connecticut Horror Fest. A really awesome guy. Um, that movie was just phenomenal. But what I wanted to do today was I wanted to maybe make a hybrid. Okay, so you either have a bipedal werewolf, which is typical. I mean, movies like Silver Bullet and Dog Soldiers, and then you have the Hounds of Hell. Okay, I mean, yeah, you say what you want about Twilight. They were just gigantic wolves, but they were on all fours. American Werewolf in London obviously was on all fours also. What if we mix them? I think that would be fun for today. So I'll show you how I'm going to start this. All right, so I got this pretty cool parchment paper texture that I found. I'm just going to lay that in the background and let's get to it. So I think I am going to draw a mixture of one that can stand upright, but also one that can go on all fours if needed. All right, so there's a lot of different design cues that we can take from this. One, you know, how big the snout is, uh, or how big the ears are. There's a lot of really cool things you could do with the stature of this thing. So what I thought was maybe if I just lean it forward, and I'm just kind of pushing in here some different um, bodily, like, I don't know. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm putting in something that could be long armed, but also not. And I don't want to get creepy with it. Here's the thing, you can easily make this alien, and I don't want to do that. Now, the joints within a werewolf arm typically are more wolf-like, okay, and then you obviously have to add in some uh, human aspects. So you're going to have some weird joints that are bent, maybe a dew claw that used to be the big toe on the human. That's fine, but a couple things I do want to do is make it hunchback because I think a hunchback werewolf is pretty terrifying. I'm going to start with the eye right here. All right, now once I get the eye in, because the eyes are going to tell me a lot about this creature. And one of the things that it's going to tell me is, does it have any emotion whatsoever? Probably not. Werewolves aren't really supposed to have emotion. They're just killing machines, even if they're nice people, but they turn into this horrific thing because of a curse, then you're kind of at the mercy of the moon and whatever that curse is going to do to you. So, in my opinion, I think if we keep the eyes as emotionless as possible and just terrifying, that that could probably help get something really cool. Now, some of the werewolves that I've liked over the past 20 years are from um, I can't believe it's 20 years. Underworld. You know, some people don't like Underworld. Some people do. I, for one, thought that they did a pretty nice job with the Underworld werewolves. Patrick Tatopoulos is a creature designer. Is one of the best, and I really like what he did with the really hulking necks, like the thick necks in the movie. I think that's really important whenever you when you draw a creature like this, just because, uh, and consider this a pet peeve of mine, but a lot of times werewolves just look silly in movies. Prime example, American Werewolf in Paris. Now, if anybody saw that horrifically bad sequel, you know that they CG'd. I really don't like that face. I'm starting over with the face. They CG'd the heck out of those werewolves, and they looked really, really bad. I mean, say what you want about directors claiming that they use prosthetics and stuff, and American Werewolf in Paris was made in 1997. All right, so it was 16, 17 years after the first American Werewolf movie in London. And they just went straight up CG. And ever since Jurassic Park came out in '93, movies just went crazy. There was an explosion of CG related movies. I mean, you have within between '93 and 2007, you had, or no, I'm sorry, 1997, 98 ish. You had Relic, you had Jurassic Park, you had, I wouldn't say Event Horizon because there's no real CG creatures in that. You have, what was that dragon movie with Dennis Quaid? Dragonheart. Okay, you have Dragonheart. You have Deep Rising with Treat Williams and Famke Janssen. It's like all these creature movies just started coming out, and then you have American Werewolf in London or Paris, and it's just like, what is happening, man? All right, so now usually I'll start with the face, but I'm kind of liking lichen. Ha! I totally did not mean to do that. I meant liking. Lichens were the kind of the urban term in Underworld for lycanthrope. Those of you that don't know what a lycanthrope is, that is the technical term for a werewolf. You can tell my obsession. And boy, had fantasies coming out about werewolves and all of that stuff. Yes, they are called lycanthropes. I actually like that name. I think it'd be kind of cool if they made a movie called Lycanthrope, and maybe they have. I don't know. Instead of just werewolf. All right. So I started to scribble in some of the shapes here. I originally wanted to do something that was bipedal slash maybe it can stand up. I think it probably could. It would just have super long legs. Well, long arms, I should say. So maybe I'll just keep it there like that. Let's go to this side here. All right. So I think if I put the eyes closer together like that, and I could make some adjustments there. Okay, so I'm going to keep the head pretty narrow. So because one of the typical attributes of a bipedal werewolf is that those tend to look more like wolves. Okay, they make the snout very long. If you've seen the movie Dog Soldiers, which I think is a super underrated werewolf, they did a great job, and that movie was by Danny Boyle. He needs to do more horror too. Although he did direct, in my opinion, the best zombie movie ever in 28 Days Later. I thought that was that still to this day, with Cillian Murphy, the best the best zombie movie of all time, in my opinion. Some people will argue with me saying, no, Dawn of the Dead, the original. And it's like, nope, nothing comes close 28 days later. All right, so now we're getting somewhere with the way this face looks. Now, notice how I'm just kind of plowing together some scribbles, and I'm just going to go back over here, maybe put some hair on the knees. I always like putting hair in obscure areas like that, especially here, because there's a bony landmark right under it. And what it does is it allows you to really accentuate where the arms and the anatomy is, um, especially like articulation and stuff. That's gonna be a big chest. So you can tell like it kind of is looking little American Werewolf in London-ish, which is totally fine by me. But I'm also going to take in consideration maybe a slightly longer snout than what's in that movie, because it is, if you're familiar with American Werewolf in London, Rick Baker, who won an Oscar for it for the makeup, he said that his idea came from his own dog, uh, because when you notice the werewolf, it it does look like a dog. It does. It kind of looks like a mixture of a bear and a chow. Like it's pretty terrifying. All right, so I noticed that like that nose isn't really doing it for me. Maybe it's a little too high up, so I'm just going to point it down a little bit and shorten it just a tad. There we go. Okay, I'm going to put some hair coming out here. Maybe I like that long hair that's kind of hanging there. I think that'd be kind of cool. Now, one of the things about a werewolf is you can spend a very, very long time just plucking in hairs. And while that's cool and all, the biggest part about a werewolf is the expression that it gives. Okay, because when you think about this creature is cursed. All right, you whatever the origins of werewolf are, whether it's Native Americans and skinwalking, whether it was a witch, whatever, some kind of supernatural power. Um, this face is supposed to be terrifying, but at the same time, almost like, hey, I kill people and I can't help it. I can't think about what I'm going to do. I just do it. And in a way, that's even scarier than somebody that can help it, but that just chooses to kill, because there's still some human decision making going on there. Whereas once that moon is full, I mean, you're at the mercy of killing and the moon and whoever is around, and then all of a sudden you just wake up naked somewhere. That's just the way it is, because all your clothes rip. It's kind of like Bruce Banner with his clothing. I don't know how he keeps some of the clothing on. All right. There we go. So again, I'm taking away the human bicep look, and I'm just getting really big with the forearm. Like with a werewolf claw, but well, both of them really. You could do a couple things. You got 5 fingers as a human, so the dew claw would obviously be on the inside because that's where the thumb is. But it also depends on what you want to do with that. Now, it's kind of like a bat. Let's go a little different here, okay? It's Halloween, whatever. Let's mix some stuff up, because typically the dew claw is back here on the hind leg. What if we make it up here also? What if there's like an extra appendage and then there's 4 fingers? I'll put some tendons in here. See how I'm just kind of laying the lines out first, because I haven't really committed to anything yet. And this is what I stress in all of my creature designs, and to you guys, is don't worry about the little details yet, because all it will do is just hinder you from what you could be creating. All right, so here's an important part, and I want to think of the overall joints for the mouth. Now, the way a wolf snarls, okay, you have your snout up here. So I'm going to keep some of that, but it's really going to stop there, because there's a little bit of human happening in here too. We have to remember that. Okay, so the typical wolf snout and the mouth goes all the way back like this, and then I could open it like that. I could do that. However, what if we experiment here and we open it here, and then this can almost be like a membrane, and then the incisors here, and then I just kind of go hog wild with the teeth. Maybe they're kind of poking out everywhere. There's the incisor on the other side. And you got to be careful with this method because one, they do have to open their mouth. So you have to give them like ample bone structure and muscle structure to actually do that. But two, it might not look like a dog anymore. And you still want to have that dog aspect in there because it is a wolf. Okay, and wolves and dogs are related, obviously. All right, so here we go. I'm going to put in just a little bit of a cranium. I don't want it to go straight back because there is a head here. Okay, so you have the head. I'm going to dip it just a little, and then I'm going to show the shoulder on the other side. Now, one of the things that I probably will have to do right now, actually, so I don't forget, is make the head bigger. There we go. And then if I make it bigger, then the ratio will be a little bit better looking between the size ratio, I mean, between the head and the shoulders. Because I'm looking at it and it's like, this is a pretty big deltoid, but it was a pretty small head. And I don't want to get too weird with that. So let's just keep it, separate. Okay, there's the dip. We won't make the hunchback too big because what'll happen is, remember, this was a human at one point. The trapezius muscles and like the rhomboids and everything, it won't show. So the shoulder is going to be right about there. All right, so I might make the hand come out this way. So let's see how that'll happen. All right, so now we're having fun. Now the ears, everything. I'm looking at the eyes, and I don't like it. I don't like that again. See, this is me being totally raw. This is what happens. And we're keeping it as fun as possible here. So there's going to be no frustration. There's just going to be trial and error. Okay, so I'm going to deep set these eye sockets a little bit. Notice how it's a little bit more human this time because that brow ridge is brought together. There we go. All right, so the ears I'm going to make bigger. And this is going to be even creepier than last time. I actually like that. Yeah, that's cool. So then I can start playing with some hair, maybe poking in different directions here. There's the cranium. The forehead is right there. So if I put maybe a more pronounced brow with some hair coming off, and then I can draw that forehead coming up. Yeah, that'll look kind of cool. So all of this creature's basically it's gonna be built like a linebacker. Okay, so now that I did that, you can see what's happening with some like self-correction because now I'm looking at it and going, that doesn't make sense if that membrane is completely covering that because being a predator, you're going to need to see those teeth. And I would much rather show those teeth now and then have the mouth open up like that. Okay, so, and this is me being really picky about how the skin will bend down. Okay, you got the crease in the mouth here. All right, so let's turn it this way just to see if I can make another judgment off of another angle. There we go. Okay, that's okay for now. I might change it. I'm gonna maybe lighten that a little bit. All right. Now we're getting somewhere. You can start to see some emotion happening in this creature. Probably heard my phone going off here for a chime for notifications. So I'm just going to turn the volume down so it won't distract us anymore. There we go. And we can also do something fun with the ears too. It doesn't have to be just the typical wolf ear. We can put maybe some extra hair coming up top there and maybe like a puff that's hanging off here like that. That would be kind of cool. Again, this is the power of suggestive lines and what's going on with the shape that you don't really know what's happening with. That's the cool part about it. There we go. Okay, see, I haven't dove too much into details because I don't want to. There we go. This part where it bends up, you can look at pictures of wolves snarling and dogs, but especially wolves. You can see that part right there where it almost squeezes the eye socket and the eyebrows and everything together. Okay, so if you lift that top of the eyebrow, it makes things twice as mean looking as they originally did. And you want this thing to be as mean as possible. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do next. One thing to pay attention to whenever you do creature design is that, and I think I've mentioned this before, is when you open the mouth of a creature and you start drawing the teeth in and everything, you have to look at how that mouth would open because mouths don't open straight up and down. I would have to stretch that bottom jaw out. So when he closes it or it closes it, the bottom jaw would have an underbite, like big time. And you don't want that. So what I like doing is a little arrow and I kind of turn it like this. And I just leave that arrow there for now. All right, so I imagine what this top palate looks like. And I'm just going to draw the bottom palate in, but I'm going to draw it with the same length. Okay, so that when it bites down, those incisors are going to go over the correct place. And the other thing to think about is if since it's dog, it's going to have some canines that are going to need to bite together. So that means that if this one comes down, it's going to hit right about there. So that means that the bottom ones will have to be slightly next to it and poking outwards so that when it bites, the tooth will come up like this. So you have to imagine what it would look like with a closed mouth just as much as you would opening the mouth. And then you just do a slight measurement going across in perspective. And then you do your other incisor. Because then what'll happen is you can do your downward measurement and you'll know that there's some space right in front of the incisors where those teeth can stop. Okay, then you have the sharp ones in the front. So I'm just going to erase that arrow. Actually, I don't need that anymore in those construction lines. And then I'm going to plug in some smaller teeth here. Okay, like all these sharp teeth up here, they also have to come down. And there's going to be a slight overbite over these smaller ones. So I'm going to make these sharp like this. So everything measures up believably. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then what you do is you draw your lip. There's the gum line. Okay, there's the werewolf's molars. They have to go all the way back. Okay, there's your membrane of your mouth. Now, when I'm looking at this, I'm going, okay, well, the mouth is kind of crooked because it is. So let's straighten it, free transform, and I'll just turn it like that. There we go. That looks much better. Okay, now I feel better. So I'm just going to slightly ghost in the tongue like this. And then I'll show the bottom of the tongue here, the fleshy part, the inside of the gum. So I might put a little bit of shading in there. This is all light for now. You don't need any kind of detail. All right, so I want to add some thickness over here to the head. So I'm just going to put the jawline coming out here. Let's zoom out here. I'm going to see what that looks like. Okay, so I think I'm going to shrink the head now. Might be a little too big. There, and let's pull the head out. So I'm going to hold down control. I'll pull it out. I think what I'll do is I'll just use warp instead. I think warp is going to help me because I don't want to make it too blunt. There we go. That's better. So I'll just pull that snout out. It looks more intimidating. Yeah, that looks better now. I think it was a little too like somebody hit it upside the head with a shopping cart and it got flat. All right, so you want to pronounce these chin furs going on here. And then this matted hair coming down. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of ghost in some shading here without going overboard. There we go. Put some wrinkles over here by the eyeball. Yeah, that's looking cool. All right, that's looking pretty cool. All right, so the other thing that I want to do is I want to figure out what's going on with that torso, because the chest, I mean, a werewolf in human form is going to basically keep your pec muscles. Okay. Even when you're a female, you're going to keep the underlying pec muscles. And I want to make it come all the way back here, and then the legs, I'm going to need to make a little thicker. And this is when studying proportions really comes into play, because this is going to be it's going to be important. Now, I'm staggering the leg outward like this so it looks more intimidating, but also I'm assuming that it's moving fast. Like it's trying to move through an area quickly to get to where it needs to go. And in order to do that, if you spread apart the legs, it'll help push off because you have like a wider stance. You're more grounded, and then you push off, and it's just like this thing's probably going to attack a human. I'll pronounce that thigh right there. I'll probably bring that back down because I don't need it yet. All right, and then that other hind leg in the back, I'm going to bend it upwards, and this is just for dynamic sake. Okay, because like right here down by the genitals, there's going to be some hair hanging down like this. I'm just thinking of this thing being really terrifying and matted looking, like it's been out in the weather. It doesn't really care because it's a werewolf. It just goes out in any weather. But, this thing doesn't take a bath. No, it kills people, and then it's soaked in blood, and then it's done. So I'm going to add some values in by the eyeball here, and I'm going to put some wrinkles in here that are going to go opposite the grain. So you notice, I'll zoom in. I've been going this direction whenever I'm adding texture, but I'm going to go down because I want this creature to look like it's aged. Okay, so even if a werewolf is immortal until you kill it with a silver bullet or a curse or whatever, they too even age. Like if you've seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, which actually has another fantastic werewolf. Bram Stoker's Dracula came out in 1992. A lot of people forget about that movie and how good it is. Keanu Reeves is in it. Gary Oldman plays Dracula. Like, it's so good. It's directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Just a really good, creepy Dracula movie, but it shows him as a werewolf in that too, and it's quite frightening. Now it's a bipedal werewolf, but the head is like a bat, and I think that's what. Well, not the entire head, but like the face is resembling a bat, so it makes it quite terrifying. Okay, chin needs to be a little more pronounced there. You can see all these scribbles, but when you zoom out, it doesn't look like they're scribbles. Like that. Okay, now we got something going on here, so I'm going to put in that little dew claw where the big toe would be, and then you have your second toe, your third toe, your fourth toe, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you got your pinky. Okay, that is not good looking. So now the good part is, well, a good thing to realize is like the toes need to bend up like this so they can grip the ground. All right, so when you're when your foot is going this way and you're pushing on the ground, it's going to roll all of your toes and your appendages almost like they're going to roll under each other. So this whole side of the foot is catching weight. So that's what I did not do before. And I'm just going to put some very, very crude indications in there that the weight's down and it doesn't need to really do anything else. All right, so the pec muscle is going to come up here. Now I could just cover it all. Okay, I can just add in some fur there. I might actually do that. I might just ghost in that pec just a little bit. And then, there we go. I'm going to have to draw this on the other side here. Okay. I don't really like that right arm coming out now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it at the same position as this. So I'm just going to just ghost in where that forearm is. But the only thing is this part, the wrist, it's going to be over here, almost like it's pointing towards us. Because maybe that's just how the creature has to stand. Because when you're a werewolf, who knows? Not that werewolves are real, but if you were a werewolf and you turned into a four-legged beast from hell, what would that look like as far as your stance goes? Like, how would you bend those front arms? Because there's a lot of human elements that stay with you when you're a werewolf. Like, unless you're a shapeshifter, like on, Skinwalker Ranch or something, you're going to look still like a human. And I'm partial to the four-legged ones again because I grew up with American Werewolf in London. But the movies that did portray the bipedal ones pretty well, I commend you. It's not easy to do because they most look really goofy. I don't know why, but Hollywood directors in general just have a really, really hard time designing compelling werewolves. It's just based on old tropes, and they don't want to take a daring look at it. There we go. Okay, so the inside of that mouth would obviously be a little black here because that's where the throat is. Okay, I'm going to put very little shading on that tongue because it is under the top jaw and there's going to be a cast shadow on it. I just want to make sure that we can see the other side of the mouth. You're not going to see much detail on it just because it's well hidden. Okay, I'm going to blacken the tip of that tongue just so we can see it. This is the power of knowing what the contrast is. I remember somebody in comments from my other video asked, like, what do you do with the background when you need to add contrast and put details in it? And I'm like, don't even think about the background. Background is for illustrators, unless you're doing concept art for environments. Don't worry about the background. Whatever's in the foreground is typically your subject matter. There we go. And I kind of want to fray the hair a little bit because it's not going to be perfect. And actually, the deltoid can come up and out like that. And I'm just going to roll just a little bit. Man, now that I did that, that is terrifying. Not going to lie, that's pretty terrifying. But I also see a mistake. There's no neck whatsoever. Oh, man. So let's see if we can move it forward and up. There we go. That's a little better because that'll give me an opportunity to connect the chest, actually. We're not really seeing a chest in there. Okay, now I feel better about that. I think that was what the problem was. Let's check with another angle. Yeah, I can see that, but also, it's a power Photoshop, love it. What we can also do is kind of turn it and dip it like that. Then it's almost really like a hound from hell. That is pretty scary. Because now what I can do is I can really stretch this out. Okay, put some matted hair hanging down, and then you got your neck muscles come down. You got your chest. Yeah, I think that's what I needed to do to it. It was just we had an uptight werewolf. He needs to loosen up. He needs to loosen up a little bit. There we go, working on the head here. And then I think what I'll do now is move the ears back. Turn them. Right like that. This ear can move down here. And the reason I'm moving it down here is because of perspective. The werewolf is we're at eye level, basically. Almost like if you were sitting on the ground and seeing this thing walking by you. So really the ground or the horizon line would be right about here. There's the ground, like you're sitting in the cement, and the thing's back is above you, so you have to look up slightly. So really, the vanishing point would kind of be going down at an angle. So you want to keep that as true as possible to perspective principles like this. There we go. I'm going to kind of round off that head a little bit more here. And then I'll put a little bit of hatching in that ear, put some matted hair poking out. Yeah, there we go. The other reason why I just love drawing on this texture, like this parchment. See, this is just a layer, by the way, guys. I can just turn this off. Oh, oops. I can just turn that off and you have a white werewolf. Well, white background. But when you add it to this, it just adds a whole other element to it. So you can see how, the method of drawing with no reference next to you it could be frustrating at times if you don't allow yourself to make mistakes. And part of the way to do that is enjoying what you're actually drawing. If you're not enjoying what you're drawing, then if things don't turn out the way you want because you have this like preconceived image in your head, then you're going to hate doing it. And this kind of ties into artists niching down into their specific skills or subject matter that they like to explore. Like with me, obviously it's creatures, and I love drawing creatures. And then a subgenre of creatures is fantasy. Werewolf is considered fantasy. There we go. It's actually a new kind of eye. I've never drawn that eye before for a werewolf, so that happened by accident. I like to round it off like this evenly, and I didn't, and I almost gave it like a little eyelid on the right side of it, so that's kind of cool. And I'm going to go back in and actually add some highlights to it too. So I'll show you how I do that. One thing I do need to do right away before it really gets to me because of my OCD, I need to erase the inside of the big incisors. So I'll show you what I mean. Right now, there's a little bit too much markings, so I'm going to erase the inside of the incisor so now you can actually see that there's an incisor there. But I'm keeping the outline that I drew. And I might do it for a couple of the other sharp teeth too. Good. See, now you can tell there's like, oh, there's a molar. There's like another little sharp tooth there. There we go. And then there. So that's looking a little better. You can tell those are teeth. Also, I might erase just a little bit on the inside of that eyeball. Look at the difference that makes. And then hint it on the other side. Yeah, see? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of close the gap a little bit. There you go. All right. Now we're cooking. Yeah. Okay, so we have this crazy hunchback, and I'm just going to stagger the hair here because our friendly lycanthrope has not taken a bath, and nor does he care. Put some hair hanging down here. There's the chest coming down. Okay, there's the armpit right in there. So I'm just going to darken the forearm. I'm going to lightly put in some shadow into there. So now you can tell what that is. All right, so we got that. It's probably more fur than I imagine there being on that part of the wrist. Okay. The other thing is when you're drawing a creature like a werewolf or a ghoul, a mummy, whatever creature you're thinking of that's kind of a classic. Um, there's no right or wrong way to actually do it because everybody's version is different. Ask, just Google Wendigo, and you'll get tons of different versions of a Wendigo. You'll get a big creature that walks on two legs with deer antlers, and then you'll get something even more horrific. Um, just look up demon, jinns, I don't know, a kelpie. That's kind of crazy. All right, so I'm going to pronounce that jaw just a little more, make it stronger. So now you know where those muscles stand, and then I'm just going to lightly ghost in some fur that may be hanging down there. Again, you don't want to go all out on the fur. I could spend hours just doing this, just drawing fur, and I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to indicate it by just trusting my markings, kind of ghosting in some shapes that represent fur without it actually being fur. Like that. Darken up the ends of the chin here to really show them off. Claws, I thought, you know what? They're probably going to be even more menacing if they're black. I think that would be kind of cool. So black toes, or black toenails, I should say. Okay. Make sure the anatomy is correct. So, you got your ankle there, and then you have your heel, because the whole thing is a heel if you think about a dog. But you got your tendons, you got your carpal, you got your carpal bones. Same thing in here. That's where the carpal is. So if you want to draw the little bones in there and then sketch over it so that you have the measurements down correct, then by all means do it. That's what I have my students do when they do creature design. There we go. The other thing is I want to mention really quick is the power of designing cool looking feet. And it not just for werewolves because it's kind of straightforward. It's doggish, canine-ish. But when you're doing something alien, think about how creatures like that are going to walk on the ground in their own respective planets. Like, we don't know. I mean, they're not going to walk around like they do on our planet because we got a different center of gravity. The atmospheric pressure is different. So, who knows? If the gravity is 4 or 5 times as much on another planet, then leg muscles on creatures are probably going to be huge because of the resistance. Oh, and I just caught a mistake. There we go. Is that soft? No, it is not. Okay. It has to be soft so that it still takes in some of the other pencil marks. All right, so this is a pretty big eyebrow. I need to reciprocate that other side without being too obvious. There we go. Okay, and then take that ear away right there because that is the actual head. Maybe there's some hair coming up off the eyebrow. That's pretty scary looking, I'm not going to lie. All right, so we got that. I hope everybody's enjoying this little werewolf Halloween special. I'm going to have more contests. Well, I'm going to have more voting like that, but I do have some contests that I would like to hold over the winter and possibly indefinitely. I just got to get some together and think about some prizes and such. I think it'd be kind of cool. All right, now notice how I'm spending a lot of time on that face, just because that's where the emotion is going to be, and that's where I want to keep it. All right, so let's zoom out here. Yeah, that's pretty terrifying. Not gonna lie, it's pretty terrifying. I'm going to shrink the head just slightly. I just looked at the proportions and something wasn't right. So let's shrink it a little bit and let's bring it forward just a little and up. There we go. I'm thinking about the werewolves and their spinal cord, like their spine. Okay, that's why I'm doing that. So let's zoom out. Yep, that looks good. All right, so let's kind of bring in that other hand there, I guess you could say, but it's not going to have a lot of detail. A lot of the things that I try to teach for creature design when it comes to drawing on these lessons and doing it quickly is that I want to show you the power of drawing quickly, but also the fact that you can get in an entire creature design with minimal details. Because when you look at this, you know it's a werewolf, and you know it's four-legged, and I've put in hardly any fur. I've just been kind of scribbling here and there, maybe to darken up some edges to show you like where the fur line ends. But other than that, it's just been kind of free flowing here. And this is the fun part. There we go. So now I'm going to show you how to, oh, you know what I need? Why don't I just kind of ghost in a little bit of shadow on the ground? We're going to keep this as raw as possible, and I'm only going to do pencil. There we go. And that looks awful. So, oh, you know what I did not do? Now that I noticed it, I got to put in the other foot with the other toes and the other dew claw coming up to there. We go. Okay, so the forearm, because showing depth, it's actually going to be a little darker. There we go. Okay, there's claws in the back. Make sure the toes are believable. There we go. Put the fourth toe back there. All right. And then the front foot is going to be darker for depth sake. Okay, so now I don't really want to put any lines that are going to distract from the werewolf. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to put it on multiply. I'm going to eyedrop just one of the tannish colors over here, like the burnt umber. And I'm going to ghost in a very soft shadow. And I'll turn the opacity down so it'll look okay. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to turn it down. And then I'm going to erase it where it came over the body. Like that, and over the foot. Just so it looks like the foot is on top of the shadow. Okay. And I think what I'll need to do is I'll just add in an extra layer of color on top of the parchment, because then you can't tell that there's a shadow there. So let me kind of take away some of the texture, but not all of it. And actually, I don't know if I like that for the shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to harden the edges here. Oops. There we go. That actually looks a little better. Turn the opacity down on that. Turn it up. Yeah, right about there. That's okay. And then again, erase on top. And now I'm going to bring out some highlights on the face. So what I'll do is I'll just eyedrop the skin tone, I get the fur tone inside there. So this is what it is. And then I'm going to go halfway to white. Well, halfway up to the brightest version of it. Hit OK. And then the layer attribute I'm going to put on overlay. And I'm going to test it first. So I want to see what that looks like. Yeah, that's okay. And then I'll keep it there. And then we'll just go into the eye. And then part of the nose. You see how it's really coming out now. But it's keeping the details of my fur that I drew. That's why overlay is so nice. But I don't want to go too far into this. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. Less is more in this case. All right, so there you have it, folks. There is your Halloween werewolf. I hope you all have fun trick-or-treating and handing out candy and dressing up. If you're going to a party tonight, party safely. Make sure you have a designated driver. Enjoy campfires, bonfires, whatever you're doing. Let me know in the comments what you guys have planned for Halloween. And if you haven't already, check out the Creature Design Workshop Discord that I'll be linking below in the description. If you found today's lesson helpful, please give it a thumbs up, like and subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate that. you guys have been awesome. Seriously, I love doing this and I love seeing the results. There's some people joining the Discord now showing their personal creature sketches, and it's really awesome to see. So enjoy your Halloween, folks, and I will have another video this week. Later.